Good morning, Mr. Pretorius. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chair. Chair, the next witness is also testifying under the rubric of law enforcement agencies. It's Major General Johan Booysen. He will be led by Advocate September.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Ms. September.
Chair, before we begin with the evidence of General Booysen, I would like to take this opportunity just to orientate through the files that you find before you. There are 2 lever arch files, the first file being marked file Exhibit ZA, and the other lever arch file is marked Exhibit ZB.
Yes, thank you.
Chair, you will also find 4 small blue folders. The first is Exhibit Z2, which contains the first supplementary affidavit of this witness.
Yes.
The next is Exhibit Z3, which contains a timeline and diagrams to orientate this witness's evidence.
Yes.
Exhibit Z4 contains his second supplementary affidavit, and Exhibit Z5 contains a third supplementary affidavit plus additional documents.
How come you have Exhibit 2 to Exhibit Z2 to Exhibit Z5 without Exhibit Z1?
Excuse me?
How come you have Exhibit Z2
Yes.
up to Exhibit Z5 without Exhibit Z1?
Chair, I've been informed that Z, A, and B
Yeah.
effectively constitutes Exhibit Z1.
Okay. We'll just have to try and sort that out, because otherwise I could, or anybody could look for where is Z1? Am I missing Z1? Okay, all right.
As it pleases, Chair. Chair, there is one preliminary issue.
Actually, why don't we fix that now? If you have got, if the lever arch files are Exhibit ZA and ZB, this should be ZC to Z whatever, isn't it?
I'm guided by
That's more logical to me.
Okay. If that is so, then Exhibit Z2, as you direct, would become?
ZC.
Chair,
And
Z3
will be Z4.
Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
would it be possible at all to propose that the Exhibit ZA and Exhibit ZB referred to Exhibit Z1, please?
Well, you see, you people need to be consistent. When we had Exhibit Y, we had Exhibit Y, Exhibit YA, and Exhibit YB. So now, if we change now to have Z1 and Z2 instead of ZA and ZB, it's not logical. So what's the change? So if you have kept AB with the others, it's better to stick to that.
Okay, I'm led by your direction, Chair.
Unless there is any particular problem that I'm not aware of that you want to tell me about.
The only challenge, while I'm guided by Chair's direction, the only challenge that may encounter is through referencing to the documents based on the evidence as it's to be presented.
Are you talking about referencing that has already happened in existing statements?
No, Chair, it's through the presentation of evidence.
No, if we change now to whatever, whether we change to Exhibit Z1, Z2, and whatever, the witness will be told, and his will have been changed to that, and he will give evidence using those exhibit numbers.
No problem.
All I was simply saying is it's better to keep consistency. I have no particular liking for ZA, ZB, or Z1, or Z2. All I'm simply saying, I mustn't have a situation where I look at this and I think I'm missing exhibit Z1.
No problem, Chair.
And then, in fact, I don't miss anything. So, so shall we just make it we were making them ZC, which was Z2, is that right?
Thank you, Chair.
And Z3 becomes ZD.
Thank you.
And then Z4 becomes ZE.
Thank you.
And Z5 become ZF. Okay, the witnesses' ones must also be marked like that so that we are all on the same page. Registrar, do you want to assist the witness?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Should the registrar administer the oath? Are you ready?
Before the oath is administered, I
Yes.
just wish to highlight a point, and that is in particular relation to the exhibit ZF, which is
Yes.
the last one.
Yes.
Chair, this particular exhibit has been prepared to ring fence a preliminary issue and the evidence in relation to the preliminary issue
Yeah.
concerning additional evidence that Mr. Booysen intends to present to this commission regarding Advocate Mxolisi Zondo,
Yes.
who is your younger brother.
Yes. Well, I guess you shouldn't say ring-fenced, because if you say ring-fenced, it's like it's being made secret. Nobody must have access to it. As I understand the position, it's the arrangement between the legal team of the commission and the witnesses concerned in the light of the discussion, was it last week, is that until I have received submissions with regard to what should happen in regard to evidence about certain disciplinary hearings that Policy Zondo chaired, we'll wait until everyone who has that evidence, as far as the legal team knows, who is going to testify has it. And if I'm going to end up hearing it, then I'll hear it. If somebody else will hear it, then that person will hear it. So I just wanted to say it's not like ring-fenced as if nobody must see it. It's evidence that's before the commission like any other evidence, and it's not treated in any special way. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I therefore apologize for the use of the word ring fence, because it was actually intended to mean that the evidence in relation to the conflict issue is to be dealt with separately.
Yes.
And it's certainly not secret.
Yeah, no, it's just that it will be dealt with later, because there is still the issue of who must hear it that must be dealt with first.
And in line with the approach of the DCJ, particularly in relation to McBride's evidence, we will then accept that that particular evidence, which is contained all in Annexures Exhibit ZF, will not be dealt with during these proceedings.
Yeah.
And it will be considered and determined once the conflict issue in relation to McBride's evidence has been determined, to set clarity for all other matters of a similar nature.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
If I may then request that this particular witness be sworn in, please.
Well, the legal team may or may not have decided it may be important, just as an announcement was made as to what the position of Mr. McBride was and Mr. Sissoko was. It may be that each witness who has something to say about evidence that will be dealt with later is also announced, but it could be that it could be announced later when the evidence is given. So I leave that to the legal team and the witnesses concerned.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Please state your full names for the record.
Johan Booysen.
Do you have any objections to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you say that the evidence that you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Well, before Ms. September starts, I heard her say, or rather, Mr. Pretoria say Major General Booysen, and Ms. September said General Booysen. I must just confess that I get very confused with police and military titles. So maybe let's start by you clarifying, is it Major General, is it General?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not rank conscious, but you can either address me as just General or Mr. Booysen or Johan if you want to. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no, that's all right. I just thought I would confess my ignorance, but just on a lighter note, talk about Major General Booysen and General Booysen. When one of my sons was much younger and I was judge president, he asked me, who is higher, is it judge president or president? so I told him that the president of the country is the highest office. So with Major General, I also wouldn't know whether it's the general or major, but I understand it must be general, I don't know. But thank you very much. I wanted to say thank you for coming forward to assist the commission. We appreciate it. You probably know that we have been calling for people who have been heading departments or heading units and other people to please come forward and share with the commission and with the nation what they know in terms of things that have happened in the past in their departments and elsewhere that relate to state capture, that relates to serious corruption that falls within our terms of reference. So I really appreciate that you have come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. May I address you as General?
You may. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could ask you to look at bundle ZA, which is one of the lever arch files before you. And if I can ask you to turn to page 1 of that bundle. Do you recognize this document?
I do, Chair.
If I can then ask you to turn to page 70 of the same bundle. Do you recognize the signature on that page?
I do, Chair. That is my signature.
And is it correct that you deposed to this affidavit on the 2nd of April 2019 before a commission of oaths?
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you. If I can now ask you to turn to, and please bear with me on the change of exhibit numbers, but it would be ZC. In doing so, can I ask you to turn to page 1 of this affidavit? Do you recognize this document?
I do, Chair.
Please identify it.
Chair, it's a supplementary affidavit that I deposed to.
If you turn to page 4 of that same bundle,
And the signature that appears there, Chair, is my signature, and it was made under oath at the Garsfontein Police Station.
and that was on the 9th of April 2019, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. This particular affidavit corrects certain typographical errors in your main affidavit. If I can ask you to turn to page 2 of it, and in particular, paragraph 5.1. Is it correct that at paragraph 30 of your main affidavit, the date was incorrectly stated as May 2011 and ought to have been reflected May 2010?
That is correct, Chair.
Is it also correct that in paragraph 40 of your main affidavit, the date of 8 August 2011 ought to have been 8 September 2011?
That is also correct, Chair.
Thank you. If I can now ask you to turn to exhibit ZE, please. Likewise, please turn to page 1 and kindly identify the document.
Chair, that's a second supplementary affidavit that I deposed to, and which I signed on the 15th of April at Midrand, and it was commissioned in the presence of a commission of oaths.
Thank you. And that, and this particular affidavit was signed on the 15th of April 2019. That's correct.
That is correct, Chair.
If I can ask you to turn to page 2 of the same affidavit, and paragraph 6 in particular. There are further typographical corrections that have been made. Is it correct that you retired in the year of 2017 and not 2016 as recorded in paragraphs 4 and 5 of your main affidavit?
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you. As you would have heard, for purposes of your evidence today, you need not refer at all to exhibit ZF. Turning to page 1 of your main affidavit in file ZA. Is it correct, firstly, that your affidavit, which is your main affidavit, your first and your second supplementary affidavits are all true and correct?
That is indeed so, Chair.
Thank you. In that instance, can I ask you to please, in your own words, inform the Chair about your career in the service?
Chair, I joined in 1976 as a constable where I was a patrol person, a patrolman. And I retired, as I said, February 2016. During my career, I acquired certain academic qualifications. I don't know if it's necessary to go into that.
Please, you're welcome to.
I obtained a national diploma in police administration. I also have a degree in policing. I also have a postgraduate qualification in management. I've been trained by the FBI in the United States of America. I've also received training by the FBI in South Africa. I attended the Chinese Police University, Forensic University. I've done a number of internal courses in South Africa, ranging from forensic courses to investigative courses to major case management, and also managerial courses. I've attended a number of high courts all over the country. I've testified in a number of high courts in the country. I've also testified at, I think this is my 4th commission of inquiry in which I'm testifying.
If I can just ask you to pause there, please indicate to the Chair which commissions of inquiry you gave evidence at.
Chair, the first one, I keep on forgetting the name, but it relates to the killing of 18 ANC members at Shoba Shobane in 1995. There was a subsequent commission of inquiry in which I testified. I later testified at the Alexander Commission of Inquiry into Taxi Violence, and more recently I testified at the Mogoro Commission of Inquiry.
Thank you.
During your term serving the South African Police Services, can you just at a high level indicate the ranks that you've held and the capacities in particular that you've held during your service?
Chair, as I said, I joined in 1976. Those days you had to write exams to become an officer, as opposed to today where you have to apply for certain posts. So I went through the processes of writing the necessary examinations. I eventually became a commissioned officer in 1987. Subsequent to that, your promotions are according to where you finished off on the candidate officer's course. With the new dispensation in 1995, there was a different process. I held the rank of a lieutenant colonel just prior to the new democratic institution. A few weeks later, I was promoted to the rank of full colonel, and subsequent in the new dispensation, I was promoted inter alia to the rank of a brigadier and major general.
Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned that you retired from the South African Police Services during February of 2017. How does that date compare to the date of your retirement?
Well, before that, I see in your statement that you also mentioned that you were also Deputy Provincial Commissioner in KZN at some stage.
That is correct, Chair.
Yes.
Chief, if I might just clarify that, when with the advent of the establishment of the DPCI, known as the Hawks,
Yes.
The provincial heads were appointed as provincial heads, and also they also became deputy provincial commissioners. Subsequent to that, there was the Glenister issue that went up to the Constitutional Court. That had changed subsequently, but during my time, I was also the Deputy Provincial Commissioner for KZN.
That position of being Deputy Provincial Commissioner, was it linked to the Police Provincial Commissioner, or was it in relation to the Hawks? I'm just trying to see whether that put you as either the second in command of the police in the province or one of the deputy provincial commissioners in the whole police service, or whether it was simply deputy provincial commissioner in relation to the Hawks.
Chair, I'll allude to that later on in my affidavit, but if I can explain it now, what happened is
Yes.
we were all appointed as deputy provincial commissioners, and I think that was to circumvent a problem where there were other deputy provincial commissioners as well. So it obviated us reporting to them.
Okay.
So at that point in time, I had two people that I reported to. I
Yes.
reported to the provincial commissioner and to the national head of the Hawks.
Okay.
But much later, there was the Glenister challenge in the High Court that eventually ended up in the Constitutional Court, where the Constitutional Court held that I should report directly to the national head of the Hawks. We in turn would not report to the national commissioner at that time, but to the Minister of Police.
Yes. Thank you.
Chair, at this particular point, it may be helpful to ask that slide 1 be placed on screen.
Is there a slide you want to show?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, let's see.
This particular slide is in fact found in your bundle
we already have it. I remember it,
ZD.
yeah. Okay.
ZD in fact contains all of the a timeline and diagrams that will be referred to at different intervals during Mr. Booysen's evidence.
Okay.
General Booysen, if I may. The slide that you see before you, is it correct that this slide was given to you by the Commission to consider?
I'm not too sure if it's the same one that I altered.
Yes, there is certainly another slide to be
Okay.
shown now,
Okay,
which is your one in
I
particular.
concede this was given to me by the Commission.
Okay, thank you. This slide is really just to orientate the evidence that you are about to give. If I can then ask for slide 2. Is it correct that after considering slide 1, you had highlighted certain entities within the structure that your evidence addresses?
That is indeed so, Chair.
Just to orientate this particular diagram, when we look at the police cluster, if I may. Thank you. Can you, for the record, inform the different entities or positions that your evidence to be dealt with at this hearing will address?
Well, you asked him whether he highlighted certain entities or sections, and on the slide that you were showing then, we could see some that seemed to be highlighted or darkened, and in the one that you are showing now, we can see some that are darkened. Do you want him to just confirm whether the ones he highlighted are the ones that have been shaded or something?
Do you confirm?
Those are my highlights, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you. In particular, there is a slight variation to this particular diagram as compared to the one that you were provided with, which is at slide 1.
That is so, Chair.
Can you please identify the difference in structure and why you highlighted a difference?
Chair, if one could go back to the previous slide, it actually shows the delineation of the actual command structure as relating from the national head of the Hawks to his national office. Under him at national office, he had certain component heads. Whereas in the second slide, I delineated the rank structure from national head to myself as a provincial head, and then the different components in the province that reported to me.
Under you. Okay.
That's right, Chair.
Thank you.
This particular slide talks to, if I could use the term cluster, various clusters, such being police, justice, intelligence, finance, governance, parliament, and the presidency. To what extent are these different clusters dependent upon each other in the chain of the criminal justice system?
Mr. Chair, in my view, the one cannot do without the other. They all form very important gears in this big machinery, and if any one of those are absent, the whole justice system will be compromised, in my view, Chair.
Thank you. It was your evidence that you were appointed as the provincial head of the Hawks in KwaZulu-Natal, and that you held at the time the rank of Major General, and that you were also the Deputy Provincial Commissioner in KZN at the time. That's correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Just talking to your particular slide, it was prior to this appointment, or rather, let me ask the question, what position did you hold before that particular appointment?
Chair, I was, just prior to that appointment, the then Scorpions were dissolved. I was then the head, at that particular time, I was the head of organized crime in KwaZulu-Natal, and prior to that, I was the head of serious and violent crime. Serious and violent crime and organized crime eventually amalgamated, and I was then the head of organized crime prior to my appointment as head of the Hawks.
Is it correct that you were also seized with other departments, which were support functions to the core units?
That is indeed so, Chair.
Can you please indicate what those support functions were, which is actually referenced in paragraph 11 of your affidavit?
Chair, if I may just clarify that in police parlor, we refer to support functions, human resources, financial departments, etc., which I was also responsible for. But there were other subcomponents, which I would rather call them, that resorted under my command,
Yes.
which are inter alia serious commercial crimes, serious organized crime, and the asset forfeiture investigation units. Although the asset forfeiture units were actually run by an advocate from the National Prosecuting Authority, they also had an investigative capacity which reported to me.
Thank you. Looking at the 4 blocks in that particular diagram on your slide 2, under the cluster of police, for those of us like me who may not fully understand, can I ask that you just explain the relationship, in simple terms, between crime intelligence, SABC, the Hawks, and IPID, please?
Chair, with regards to SABC, crime intelligence is a component of SABC, of the South African Police Services, and so are the Hawks, the DPCI. They are an integral part of SABC. Whereas opposed to IPID, they're not an entity of SABC, they're an independent entity, and they work on their own.
Thank you. So from what position do you give evidence today? Is it one of a civilian, or is it one based on your professional experience in the service?
Chair, I regard my evidence that I will give to this commission as being part of the police structures for about 40 years of my life, until I retired, and more specifically to events more recently from around about 2010.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At paragraph 12 of your affidavit, you make a particular assertion in relation to the capture of individuals. Can you please explain your...
Let him just articulate it.
Please.
Chair, it's my view that, for reasons that I will elaborate on further in my evidence,
Yes.
that certain elements, and not all of them, certain elements within the law enforcement and the National Prosecuting Authority had been captured for reasons of own interest, and in other cases to promote or to follow a particular agenda or narrative for at the behest of people's political power, or in some instances from politicians that were directly involved.
Thank you.
General Booysen, how would you explain your record of work during your service since you started in 1976?
Chair, I regard myself as a born policeman. It was my passion my whole life. It was not a job for me, it was a passion. I had an unblemished career. I'd received numerous national awards from various national commissioners in the previous dispensation and in the current dispensation. I've received a number of awards at provincial level, and I was also recognized by the previous head of Interpol. Up until the events that unfolded around about 2010, I had an unblemished career.
Well, in relation to the point you articulated earlier on, you said you believe that the evidence you will give will support the statement you have made about certain sections of the law enforcement agencies being captured.
Indeed, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You said that there was a change that came about in your record. What was the trigger, in your view, for the change in the unblemished record that you had during your service?
Chair, I have no doubt in my mind that the trigger for the change in my experience in the police came about around about 2010, when I initiated a corruption investigation into the business of a wealthy businessman in KwaZulu-Natal by the name of Johan Booysen, and his links with certain senior police officials.
In that instance, can I ask for slide 3 to please be displayed? For your ease of reference, you will find that particular slide in Exhibit ZD.
Can you arrange for me to get a hard copy of the same thing, because I don't think I've got it here.
Chair, we would find it in Exhibit ZD.
Oh, okay. I missed that. Thank you.
And it's page 3 of that bundle.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you. This diagram represents a timeline of your evidence in relation to the Pandey investigation, or rather the investigation into the businessman, Mr. Toshan Pandey. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
Is it also correct that this diagram in fact consolidates in time order, which may not be exactly reflected in time sequence in your affidavit, but that the way in which it's described in the timeline is in fact correct?
That is so, Chair.
So if we could then start in the first block, and you could use then this as your guide to giving the evidence in relation to this investigation. Please explain to the Chair what happened on the 28th of April 2010. And in your own words, amplify your evidence.
Chair, normally at senior management level, we have management meetings every morning at provincial level. During those meetings, those meetings are chaired by the provincial commissioners, their deputies, and then all the senior officers from the respective components, for instance, the financial department.
Okay, I'm sorry. Before you proceed, just remind me again, as at that date, as at that year, 2010, what was your position? Were you at that stage?
Chair, at that stage, I was head of the Hawks.
You were head of
at
the
the
Hawks
rank of
in the
Major
province.
General.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, you may proceed.
During those meetings, it's first a general meeting regarding the crime in the province the previous night and the previous day, and thereafter we discuss financial issues, human resource issues, supply chain management issues, etc. On the 28th of April, just before the meeting commenced, I was approached by a Brigadier Lawrence Kemp, who was the head of financial services in KwaZulu-Natal, the province, and indicated to me that they had discovered that there appears to be some irregularities with regards to the acquisition of certain services. So I asked him at that meeting, could he prepare something in writing for me and then give it to me. The following morning, before the same meeting, he came up to me and he gave me a copy of a report that he had compiled, and he had also placed one in front of, at that juncture, the provincial commissioner hadn't arrived at the meeting yet. So he had also placed one in front of her, an empty seat. For some reason, I took that one away. And I asked Kemp to just let me have a look at it before we actually distribute the report.
Did you say he had also given a copy of the same report to the provincial commissioner?
Chair, he actually, she was late that morning.
The provincial commissioner?
That's right.
And who would have been the provincial commissioner at that time?
That would have been Lieutenant General Mamunye Nkubeni.
Oh, okay, all right. But the meetings that you are talking about in the mornings are meetings that in her capacity she would attend as well?
That's right, Chair.
Okay, all right.
That particular morning she was late, Chair.
Yes. So you say you took the report that was meant for her?
So while we were standing around, he gave me a copy of the report.
Yeah.
And he placed one in front of an empty chair.
Yeah. And you took it?
So I took that one.
Okay, yes.
And I said to him, Lawrence, just give me a day or two to see what's going on here, because I quickly read through it, and I said, just give me a day or two to see what's happening.
Yes.
Nevertheless, after that particular meeting, I went back to my office and I called in Brigadier Andre Lategan, who was the head of commercial crime in the province at that point in time. So I gave him the report and I said to him he should have the matter investigated and then inform me what was going on. So Chair, so what we do is in the police, normally when a case gets registered, it goes on what we call the CAS system. That's when a docket is open. But what we do in the police, especially with your more covert investigations, because police officers have access to the CAS system, they can establish when corruption cases or any other case for that matter in which they could possibly be implicated in if a case had been registered. So what we sometimes do is we register on the same system an inquiry.
Yes.
Without specifying what it's all about. So,
okay.
And once all the evidence is eventually gathered to convert it to an official docket, we will then convert that inquiry into a criminal investigation docket. Okay. Although the inquiry is actually also a part of the criminal investigation.
and the same people who have access to what you called, did you say?
The CAS system.
How do you spell that?
CAS.
Oh,
It's a criminal administration system.
Oh, okay. The same people who have access to that system also have access to the registration of inquiries,
They would, Chair, but
but they don't bother most of the time.
no, because of the requirements in registering a criminal docket,
Yeah.
you have to fill in every aspect of what's
Yes.
required to have the docket registered. As
Yes.
opposed to an inquiry, you
Yes.
don't have to go into that detail. So it's very difficult for a policeman who wants to go and see if there's a case being investigated against him or her
Yeah.
to go and fish around to see if there's an investigation.
Okay, okay. No, thank you.
The Chair,
So you asked
Brigadier
a certain-
Lategan.
Brigadier
Lategan.
Lategan to investigate and report back to you on this issue.
That's correct, Chair.
Yeah.
So what he did, Chair, is he booked the investigation out. At that point, it was to a Colonel Hans van Lochenberg and Colonel Vasan Subramani. They were the two lead investigators in that particular investigation.
Before you continue, if I could just interject there for a second, can you just give clarity to exactly what this investigation concerned, please? What was the nature of the investigation?
Chair, on face value, looking at the initial report from Brigadier Kemp, on face value, it was clear that there had been some irregularities in supply chain management at provincial level in KwaZulu-Natal.
At SABS, SAPS.
That's correct, Chair.
Yes, okay.
The indications were that all transactions during the World Cup period preceding the World Cup and even after the advent of the World Cup, just about every transaction had gone through the books of one particular businessman in KwaZulu-Natal, which was Tashan Pandey. And
Yes.
I work with supply chain management as part of my function and financial management. So it just looked odd and suspicious. That I mean, blankets, television sets, accommodation. I can give you perhaps an example. Police headquarters, the Hilton Hotel is situated about 2 blocks away from police headquarters.
Yes.
When a senior officer from Police National Head Office had to come and visit in KZN, although the hotel was right next to, 2 blocks away from where we were, it still went through the books of the businessman in Mshlonga Rocks. So it just seemed odd that...
I'm sorry, I just want to understand what went into the books of somebody in Mhlanga Rocks.
So what happened is, Chair, the procurement process is defined in the Treasury regulations. Over above amount, you have to get tenders.
Yes.
There's a certain amount which people at different levels can authorize
approve,
themselves. And then there's also a lower level, and I cannot recall what it's called. It's not tenders. Quotations, that's right.
Yes.
We have to get quotations, and then you need to, and then also there's a database in terms of BE, so it gets allocated. So there are certain processes that must be followed.
Yes.
And it appeared from that initial report that those processes were not followed.
Yes. But you were making an example about if somebody from National was visiting the provincial offices of SABS, and you were saying something about the Hilton Hotel.
If I can give a practical example, Chair, in my capacity as head of the Hawks, if I wanted to visit any place in the country, I'll fill in an itinerary. I'll send it to, at the time, the national head, General Anwar Dramat. He'll authorize it, and off I go. My secretary will do my booking at the hotel. She'll do my transport arrangements, etc. In this particular instance, officers visiting from National Head Office, their accommodation was procured and acquired via the businessman in Mshlonga Rocks.
Which was outside of the processes, which was not in accordance with, which would not be in accordance with the normal processes?
Chair, strictly speaking, I would not have had a problem if it was one or two occasions.
Yes, yeah.
Because invariably we also make use of, especially when it comes to traveling, certain
Yes.
agencies.
Yes.
But in this particular instance, it appeared that everything, from buying of television sets for police stations, blankets for the cells, cell mattresses, accommodation for people coming from National Head Office. But the actual problem related to the acquisition of accommodation for the deployment of police officers during the World Cup soccer. That was the major part of
your concern.
Of the concern, because although it went through the books of one or two closed corporations, those closed corporations were all registered in the name of one person, which was Tashan Pandey.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarification.
Thank you. General, what did you do once you considered the information that was given to you by Brigadier Kim on the 3rd of May 2010?
Chair, that juncture, he'd already registered the inquiry, and I was continuing with my daily task, and there were different departments reporting to me, so obviously there are a number of investigations which are reported to me, but over and above that, I'm also seized with other matters such as human resource management, that I've explained before.
Thank you. And who was allocated the investigation?
The two chief investigators, as I said, was Colonel Hans van Lochenberg and Colonel Vasan Subramani. Chair.
Thank you. And who registered the inquiry?
Chair, the registration is actually administrative function, so I don't know whether it was Latergan himself or either of the two investigators, but that was just an administrative function, although I mentioned in my statement or this diagram that Latergan was responsible for that.
Thank you so much. What then happened during early May 2010 as you were traveling home?
Chair, I can recall this vividly. I was driving in my car. I just exited the city and I was on the freeway on my way home in the Mamsentoti, which is on the south coast, when I received a call from the then Provincial Commissioner, Mamonye Nkubeni. And I could hear from her voice she was irritated, and she said to me, "Johan, what's this investigation you're busy with?" And I said to her, "Well, General, which one are you talking about?" And there are a number of investigations that we're busy with. And then she said, "No, the supply chain management one." And then I started explaining to her, but she kept on interrupting me, and she said to me, No. We already have these problems at Mountain Rise Police Station. The police are, it's an embarrassment to the police. Now, she was referring, Chair, to, at that point in time, there was an investigation pertaining to the manipulation of police statistics, which eventually culminated in the prosecution of a number of senior officers at Mountain Rise. And it was quite prominent in the media. So she said to me, "No, we already have this problem at Mountain Rise, and now further investigation, we're just going to embarrass the police any more, and that you must stop the investigation."
Now, when she said you must stop this investigation, which one did you understand her to be talking about?
It was clear in my mind that she was talking about this particular investigation against Tashan Pandey. She then abruptly terminated the call, Chair, and that's basically what happened on my way home. She told me to stop the investigation.
Now, she referred to it when you asked her which one, because there are lots of investigations that are ongoing. She said the supply chain management one.
No. Well, yeah, that's what she said. Because
that's how she described
that's
it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
At that stage, was was the investigation that you gave to Brigadier Lataghan the only supply chain management investigation that you were busy with, or people under you were busy with?
Chair, maybe at that point, I'd only been in that position for about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So that was the very first
Yes.
and only supply chain management or investigation that I've been involved in relating
Yes.
to our own department.
Yes. So there can be no doubt which one the two of you were talking
Absolutely not.
about. Okay. Thank
Chair.
you.
Did the police commissioner during that call ask you any details about the magnitude of the investigation, the role players involved, or any other factual detail in relation to the investigation?
She didn't, Chair. As a matter of fact, she hardly gave me time to speak. As soon as I would start to try and explain, she just cut me off, and she was adamant. She just said, no, the investigation must stop. She didn't ask me what it was about, what the magnitude was, what it involved. She just said to me, I must stop.
You were the provincial head of the Hawks at the time, is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
And you, at that time, was it during the time where you were supposed to report both to the provincial commissioner as well as the national head of the Hawks?
Yeah, that's indeed so, Chair.
Yes. So, technically speaking, could she tell you to stop an investigation by virtue of the fact that you reported to her, or is that something that, even with her ranking above you and the fact that you reported, she was one of 2 people to whom you reported, is the position that it was, she could not under any circumstances instruct you to stop an investigation?
Chair, she had the right to give me instructions, but most definitely not to stop an investigation. That, in my view, was an unlawful instruction.
Yes, certainly in terms of what you had seen in the report that you were given by, I think, Brigadier Kemp, you saw enough to justify that an investigation be done, at least preliminarily, and then you take it from there. But she was saying, stop that.
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. And you say she didn't give you a chance to respond to her instruction?
Not when we had the
Immediately.
conversation.
Yeah.
Chair, not when we had the conversation in the car.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Please then clarify what is the normal procedures and protocols to stop an investigation?
Chair, it's quite simple. Once a docket had been opened, it can be closed in various ways. And I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible. If there's a housebreaking case, it gets investigated, fingerprints are taken, witnesses are interviewed, but if no suspects are identified, and it's a dead-end case, the case will be closed by a police officer as undetected, and it remains open for a period of time, depending on the nature of the investigation. If it's a housebreaking case, after 5 years, they might destroy the docket. If it's a murder case, it remains open indefinitely. When there's a suspect in a matter, like in this particular instance, when names are mentioned of people that had ostensibly committed criminal offenses, there is no authority within SABC to close or stop an investigation. That docket must be referred to the National Prosecuting Authority, to a prosecutor, who will then weigh the evidence and decide whether he's going to prosecute a person or an individual or not. If he so finds that there are reasons, lawful reasons why a prosecution should not proceed, for instance, if there was a case of assault but the person acted in self-defense, that prosecutor may then decide to nolly prosecute or decline to prosecute in the matter, and he'll endorse a docket as such. The docket will be sent back to the police station, and the branch commander of a certain rank will then close that docket. So with regards to closing of dockets where there are suspects, it must be consequent to a decision of a prosecutor. No police officer has the authority to summarily close a docket or stop an investigation unless, if there are suspects indicated in the investigation.
So you received this call from Police Commissioner Ngobeni. What then happens the next day?
Chair, so the next day after the managed meeting in the morning, I called in Brigadier Lataga and I said to him, Andre, we've got a problem here. The PC...
And at that meeting, was she there, the provincial commissioner?
Not at this meeting.
Not at this meeting, okay. Oh.
So, Chair, I called in Lataga to my office and I said to him, Andre, we've got a bit of a problem here. And in police parlor, we refer to the provincial commissioner as a PC. I said the PC has given instruction that we must stop this investigation, so we need to stop the investigation. And he frowned and couldn't understand based on what, and he questioned me. I said, well, Andre, let's bring me back the file, and then let's see how things develop. And he left my office, and he was obviously not happy. I suspect at a later stage that I think Latagan and even Subramani and a few other people also thought that I was in cahoots trying to suppress the investigation. Nevertheless, he left the office and he later on came back with a file to my office.
So you asked him to bring back the file?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes, okay. Did you ask him whether he knew how the provincial commissioner might have got to know about the investigation? Brigadier Latagan, did you ask him whether he had any knowledge as to how the provincial commissioner got to know about the investigation?
Chair, I don't have an independent recollection of whether
you
I asked him that or not, but what I do know is, which emerged later on, was that Van Lochenberg and Subramani started to make inquiries at supply chain management.
Or those were the people who were assisting Latagan?
That's right, Chair.
Yes, in the investigation.
That's right. So it emerged during the investigations that they'd made inquiries to supply chain management and at the financial department.
Yes.
So we suspected that
somebody then...
some of the people at supply chain management formed part of the investigation.
Yes.
And we suspected that they perhaps alerted that we were busy with this investigation.
Okay.
Based on the evidence that you've given, that the process of stopping the investigation was improper, why did you proceed to inform Latagan to return the file and stop the investigation?
Chair, as I said, in my view, that was obviously an unlawful instruction. And you have to understand, and I saw Mr. McBride also testifying about it yesterday. In the police, if something like that is going on, and you go in the opposite direction, you're dead in the water. Although in my mind, I was never going to stop that investigation. That's why I said to Latagan, let's see how this thing develops, because I also know that the national head of the Hawks at that juncture was Anwar Dramat. And I had no doubt in my mind that he was not going to be party to having investigations stopped. So I was banking on his support later on. But initially, I did take the file back from him.
So your idea was to have the file brought back while you think about how to handle this situation?
That's so, Chair.
Yes, because if the file didn't come back, Brigadier Latagan and those assisting him could be taking further steps, and then the provincial commissioner could hear that the investigation has not been stopped, and she could come back to you before you had made up your mind as to how to handle the situation?
Chair, it actually went beyond that. What would happen is, and in this particular instance, it did happen. People like Brigadier Kemp, later gaan, anyone who would be involved with that investigation would be ostracized by the provincial commissioner. And she would take it out on them. And not everyone has...
Can handle that situation.
That's right, Chair.
Yes.
So I, in a way, I had to protect my investigators.
Yes.
But that did not mean that I was in agreement that the investigation should stop.
Yes.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay.
On the 8th of May, while you were at home, you received another telephone call. Can you please share with this commission what transpired and who called you on that particular day?
Chair, I was in my dining room when I received a call on my cellular phone from the same provincial commissioner in Kobeni, and she was very irritated, and she actually shouted at me. She said to me, "Johan, I told you people to stop this investigation." So I said to her, "But General, it has been stopped." And she said to me, "No, what's wrong with you people?" Or words to that effect. And she said, "No, the investigation..." So I tried to convince her, no, the investigation had stopped. And then I said, "Look, let me phone Brigadier Latergan and confirm with him." So we terminated the call. I phoned Brigadier Latergan, and I phoned her back, and I said to her, "Look, I've spoken to Latergan. He says they're not continue with the investigation." And she appeared to be happy with that response.
This was, you say this was on 8 May 2010. About how long after the first call was it? A week or a few days or two?
Chair, the first call in my car and then the second call.
Yes.
I would, Chair, that I have to guess, I'd say about between 2 and 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
Just to clarify, you mentioned that the first call happened during early May 2010, and the second call then happened on the 8th of May 2010.
Okay.
That should be correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And you never got to know what it is that may have made her think that the investigation was still going on?
Chair, I had no idea. What I suspected at that juncture was because certain individuals from supply chain management, such as Colonel Naveen Madhu, who had a close relationship with the provincial commissioner, I suspected that he got wind of the story that there was an investigation and that he had alerted her to the investigation. It later emerged during the investigation that there was a particular motive for her actions in that regard.
Thank you.
General Booysen, what was the involvement of Lieutenant General Anwar Dramat, if there was any involvement of him at all, following the last call that you received from the provincial commissioner?
Chair, I don't get the question.
Okay. So after the last call that you received from the provincial commissioner in Ngobeni on the 8th of May 2010, did you raise this issue with any of your superiors?
No, I did not immediately, Chair.
Okay. When did you raise this issue with any of your superior?
So, Chair, we often have national meetings for various reasons. I can't recall the date, but it was not too soon after what had occurred that we had a national meeting with the provincial heads, with General Dramat at the Burgers Park Hotel in Pretoria. And we started the meeting, and at the first tea break, he came and stood next to me, and we were having tea, and he asked me, what is the story about this investigation that's been stopped? So,
Who was coming to you to ask?
Dramat.
Oh, General Dramat. Okay.
So I assumed at the time that, and I suspect, and not that I blame them for that, that it is either van Lochenberg or Subramani. Subramani later told me that it was indeed him. I don't know whether they phoned him or whether they went to see him, had told him about what had happened. So I said to him, well, General, I'm in a bit of a pickle here because the Provincial Commissioner is adamant that we stop this investigation. And he wanted to know from me, but why? And I couldn't explain why. Then I made a suggestion to him. I said, I said to him, there's clear indications that there are irregularities. And then I said, that's on the one hand, and on the other hand, she's adamant that we stop the investigation. Then I made a suggestion to him that we continue with the investigation, that with the same investigating officers, but that they should report to his office, ostensibly, whereas I would surreptitiously remain involved with the investigation, to which he agreed. He then appointed a Brigadier Nkosi, who at the time was working at the Office of Serious Economic Offences, to, and I say it in inverted commas, to monitor the investigation. So, but I suspect in any event that Subramani and van Lochenberg had in any event continued with the investigation, because
yes.
when we got together again, it was clear to me that they'd actually continued with it.
Yes. So normally the monitoring of the investigation would have been done by you. But now there was Nkosi, but you said you were saying in inverted commas, so I assume that you mean on record he was the one to monitor, because on record you were not going to be fishery, or officially or formally, but you would still have something to do with the investigation, is that right?
That was the case, Chair, and the idea with that was if I had any further problems with the Provincial Commissioner trying to interfere or to stop that, I could just tell her, look, it's not in my hands, that you have to speak to Dramat.
Yeah.
And I knew she would never confront Dramat with something like it.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Just one clarity on the date, as you mentioned earlier. If we turn to page 10, paragraph 30 of your affidavit. Is it correct that the meeting that you had with Lieutenant General Anwar Dramat happened during late May of 2010,
That's correct, Chair.
as it was corrected in your supplementary affidavit? Chair, if I may, I understand
It's
that
time
the
for the
is
short
now
break.
the break.
Okay, we'll take the short break and resume at 25 to 12. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair. I was naughty. I was naughty. I didn't put you on record. Promise to do so after tea. So sorry. You doing well? Huh? Thank you. Thank you for work. No, thank you. You listening? I don't.
You may proceed, Ms. September.
Thank you, Chair. Before we proceed with the continuing evidence of this witness, I need to humbly apologize to my colleagues in the audience who have not placed themselves on record.
Yes. You overlooked them.
I humbly apologize.
Yes, okay. I think they must just place themselves on record.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, they did already meet with me. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning.
My name's Kavitha Bhimchan from the Durban Bar with dual membership at the Johannesburg Bar. I represent Major General Nomfazi Ngembe,
Yes,
instructed by the officers of the State Attorney KwaZulu-Natal.
yes.
Major General Ngembe is one of the implicated persons who was served with the Rule 3.3 notice.
Okay.
We reserve our right to apply to cross-examine Mr. Booysen, depending on the evidence presented.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair.
Morning.
My name is Johan Booysen
Thank
of
you.
the firm BDK Attorneys.
Yes.
We are here to represent Major General Jan Mapula.
Yes.
He has also received Section 3.3 notice,
Yes.
and he also reserves the right for cross-examination.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you for the indulgence.
Yes, you may
Chair.
proceed.
General Booysen, before the short adjournment, you gave evidence in relation to the phone call that you had with the police commissioner on the 8th of May. We are now on page 6 of your affidavit, where you describe in paragraph 19 a meeting that you had during mid-June 2010. Please describe the events of this meeting to the Chair in your own words.
Chair, I'd arrived at my office that morning, just about after 7, and then I received a call from the Secretary of the Provincial Commissioner to come up to her office. To me it was strange in the sense that she was never at the office that early. She would invariably arrive late at work.
Around what time of the morning would it have been, more or less?
Chair, that was about 7:15.
Yes. Okay.
But invariably, even for the management meetings which were supposed to have started 7:30, which she changed to 8 o'clock, but she invariably would come late to even those meetings.
Yes.
And that particular morning, at 7:15, I got the call to come to her office. I then proceeded. I was situated on the 14th floor, and she was on the 18th floor. So I proceeded to her office, and then on entering her office, I found her there, as well as Major General Bongani Ntanjana, who was responsible for support services in the province, comprising supply chain management, financial services, and human resource management. He is now deceased. There was also Major General Fanny Masemolo. He was the provincial head for operational response, dealing with, amongst other things, the deployment of police officers in the province. General Masemolo is currently, I think, the Deputy National Commissioner at the rank of Lieutenant General. Also seated there was Brigadier Lawrence Kemp, whom I'd referred to earlier on as the head of financial services in the province, as well as Colonel Naveen Madhu, who was from supply chain management, who at the point was one of the subjects of the investigation, who had allegedly colluded with Toshan Pandey.
What then happened at this meeting?
Chair, it was quite an uncomfortable meeting. General Kubeni aimed the frustrations towards Brigadier Kemp. And it soon became clear to me that she'd either been misled or there was something seriously wrong, because she went hammer and tong for Kemp. And she accused him of being more concerned about finances, money, than the lives of the citizen. citizens. And then the more Kemp tried to explain to her, the more she interrupted him and she would admonish him. And there was some argument, well, not argument, some discussion between the two of them relating to some reports that he had sent to national office, and that she was almost out of control. And then she had a go at him for communicating directly with head office, which I couldn't understand what it had to do with what we were busy with. And the conversation carried on, and eventually I just kept quiet. And the reason why
So I'm sorry, when you came into the meeting, had the meeting started already?
No.
Not yet, it had
No,
not
Chair.
started, but you found that all of those people you have mentioned were already there at
That's
the venue.
correct, Chair, yeah.
Yes. Before the meeting started, or when the meeting started, was it announced what the meeting was about?
Not at all, Chair. I didn't even have an idea what was going to happen when she called me. I didn't know what she was calling me for.
Yes. And you didn't know about this meeting until you got a phone call from somebody in her office.
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. So the first thing that happened was she started speaking, and she effectively was speaking to Brigadier Kemp.
She was speaking to Kemp, but I got the feeling she was talking to me as well.
Yes.
But not directing it at me.
Okay, all right. No, that's fine. Continue.
Chair, the main reason I didn't want to say anything was the mere fact that one of the main suspects in the investigation, Colonel Naveen Madhu, was part of the meeting, so I just kept quiet. Then she, at one stage, said to me, "Johan, what do you say?" So I said to her, "General, I feel uncomfortable talking. I'll talk to you later." I don't know if she sensed why I felt uncomfortable, but she then excused Kemp, and she excused Colonel Madhu.
But let's, if you are able to, let's get more in terms of what she said at that meeting, as far as you are able to remember. You have said that she's, if I can put it in my words, it seems that you are saying she really was attacking Kemp, or she was upset with him. But I would like to hear exactly what she was saying, if you are able to remember.
What I recall, Chair, was that and that's why I felt she'd either been misled by someone, or else she knew what was going on and tried to make this thing off as if she was talking to Kemp, but by implication to myself as well, that we were concerned about finances as opposed to that we should be concerned about the lives of citizens. And it didn't really make sense to me, and that's why I didn't say anything. And then there was a discussion between her and Kemp about a report that he had sent to National Head Office. I cannot recall. That particular report didn't have anything to do with our investigation.
Oh, it had not?
No.
Okay. And the discussion had nothing to do with that investigation that you told us about? What she was saying at the meeting to Kemp?
That's right.
Did not concern the investigation that you told us about? The supply chain management?
No, it did, Chair.
It did?
Yeah, I think I don't know whether she conflated two issues intentionally.
Yes.
Or whether, but that whole meeting made no sense to me.
Okay.
But it was evident to me that it related to the investigation that we were busy with.
Yes, yes.
Because
and
when
you say she was upset?
She was visibly upset.
Okay.
When she excused Kemp and Madhu, I said to her, "General, I don't think you understand what's going on here. We are not concerned about the deployment of police officers, because that's the impression that has been created, that we are concerned about paying for the deployment of police officers." I said to her, "We're not concerned about the actual deployment of these police officers. What we are concerned about is what concerns us as investigators. It would appear that all the acquisitions of the accommodation and other issues as well were going through the books of one businessman in Umhlanga Rocks." And I said to her, "It's clear that there's something amiss here." A response to that was, once again...
So at this time you you decided, or you had already decided, that if an occasion arose, you would indicate your concerns about concerns about these irregularities.
That's correct, Chair. And
Yeah.
that's what I tried to explain to her.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether she tried to pretend that she didn't know what was going on, or whether those were my thoughts at the time, whether she'd been misled or whether she didn't really grasp what was going on. That's why I explained to her, we're not concerned about the actual deployment. What we are concerned about is the acquisition of the accommodation for the deployment, because it all seemed to go through the books of Tashan Pandey. Her response was, once again, the investigation must stop. And then she said to General Bongani in Tanjana, who's now deceased, that he should commence with an investigation. Now, it didn't make sense.
Same investigation that you or your people, your team, people under you were busy with, and now actually we're under General Dramat as well.
That's correct,
Yes.
Chair.
But at that stage, she didn't know about Dramat's arrangement.
No.
Yeah, okay.
No. So, Chair, she told Tanjana that he should take over the investigation. It did not make sense to me, because General Tanjana had not been detective for many years, number one. Number two is he did not have the capacity to deal with such an investigation. He did not have the investigators to deal with such an investigation. As it would turn out later, we had to employ forensic auditors. So, and in my mind, it did not make sense to me that he should do the investigation.
But did it make sense to you that on the one hand, at the same meeting and before, she had said and was saying the investigation must stop, but then now she was saying the investigation must be done by somebody other than the people who had already started on the investigation?
Chair, to me, in my view, that was a ruse. It was a ruse to try and pacify me, to indicate, well, there will be an investigation, we're not going to sweep this under the carpet. That's my view, and it was actually, my suspicions were confirmed later on, which I would allude to later on in my affidavit. Sorry, Chair, and then she said to Tanjana, he must conclude his investigation within 2 weeks.
Oh, did that strike you as a kind of normal time within which to start and finish an investigation like that, or there was nothing wrong with that time?
Chair, there's no ways that even myself, with the resources at my disposal at the time, a number of investigators whose sole function is to do investigations, whereas Tanjana had none of those resources. It's just impossible to conclude or finalize an investigation of that magnitude in such a short period of time.
Okay, thank you.
So, following that meeting,
Okay, maybe before we talk about what happened after, did the meeting end on the basis that Tanjana was going to do the investigation?
That's correct, Chair.
That's the basis on which it ended.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
following that meeting, were you provided with any form of an investigative report from one of the investigators in the Tashan Pandey investigation?
Chair, about 2 weeks later, Colonel Vasan Subramani then provided me with a follow-up report, which was much more detailed than the initial report that I had received from Kemp. And from a reading of that report, it was very clear that there were irregularities, and I would go as far as to say that those irregularities related to possible corruption and even and fraud and perhaps other crimes as well. So he provided me with with this report.
And this was about how long after that meeting, the other meeting?
Chair, it was about 2 weeks later.
Okay.
While you do refer to this particular report much later in your evidence, I think it's prudent to consider the report at this stage. So, in this regard, I ask you to turn to Exhibit ZE, which is a soft blue folder. And in particular, I ask you to turn to page 2 of that affidavit. In paragraph 5 on page 2 of this affidavit, you mentioned that the progress report, which was attached to your main affidavit, was not in fact the actual report that you had intended to attach. And so with this affidavit, you attach the actual report, which is the report that you now speak of in your evidence as the report of Colonel Vasan Subramani. Is that correct?
This is the report, Chair.
Can I then ask you to turn to page 5 of the same bundle, soft bundle? And because of the importance of this report to the entire investigation and the evidence that is yet to be presented, I ask you to read through certain paragraphs into the record. Can I ask you to read through the second, third, and fourth paragraph, please? And before you do so, for the record, this particular report is titled Preliminary Report on Investigations, Commercial Crime Inquiry 07/05/2010.
And it appears, or it starts at page 5 of Exhibit ZE. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I just want to confirm there are 3 paragraphs that are not numbered, and then there are ones that are numerically numbered.
Yes.
Should I read out one?
So if I could ask you to read out the unnumbered, paragraph 2, 3, and 4, which has the sub-paragraphs in them.
Paragraph 2, it is alleged that supply chain management from PHQ, which will be provincial headquarters, KwaZulu-Natal, has from October 2009 to date utilized the services of Gold Coast Trading, CC, and settled claims in excess of 15 million rand. On the little information given by Brigadier Lategan, we were required to determine a link between Toshan Pandey and members of supply chain management from provincial headquarters. However, on Thursday, the 6th of May 2010, we were instructed by Brigadier Lategan to return the investigation file to provincial headquarters after he had received instructions to halt the investigations. Thus far, our investigations have revealed the following. There are 3 targets identified in what appears to be there's a grammatical error, sorry, Chair, appears to be a case of fraud and corruption, namely Toshan Pandey, the directors of Gold Coast Trading, CC, Colonel Naveen Madhu attached to Supply Chain Management Provincial Headquarters, and Captain A. Narain Persad also attached to Supply Chain Management at Provincial Headquarters. Toshan Pandey is also the director of 8 other CCs registered in his name. In 2 of the CCs, he has a partner. From October 2009 to date, Supply Chain Management from Provincial Headquarters have paid Gold Coast Trading in excess of 15 million rand for services rendered. Of these claims, 99% on respect of accommodation obtained for SABC members, whilst 2 claims are for the procurement of blankets, 1 claim for 2 Sony Bravia 40-inch televisions, 1 claim for flip chart stands, and 1 claim for the procurement of a generator. It has also been established that Supply Chain Management had made use of United Mzansi Trading and Project CC, a close corporation owned by Toshan Pandey, to hire 13 C-Class Mercedes-Benz during February 2010 at a cost of 198,000 rand.
Thank you. Paragraph 5 at the bottom of this page refers to a particular bed and breakfast. Can you please identify the name and location of this bed and breakfast? It's in the actual heading.
It's called Tozes Bed and Breakfast at Bergwil, KwaZulu-Natal.
And then what follows on the next page, if you could start reading from the second line, which begins with the first claim, to give particularity to the natures of the claims that were lodged.
The first claim was from 24 December 2009 to 6 January 2009. The claim submitted and settled by SAP was for 113,400 rand. However, the actual cost of the accommodation at Tozes Bed and Breakfast was 29,400 rand. The second claim from 6 January 2010 to 22 January 2010, then in brackets 6 nights for 6 members, for 172,800 rand, was settled by the SAP, obviously the police. The actual cost of the accommodation at Tozes Bed and Breakfast was only 33,600 rand. However, with regard to the second part of the claim, Toshan Pandey made use of Tozes Bed and Breakfast to accommodate the members, and no further members arrived as an addition to the manpower requested for the detached duties. However, in the second part of the claim, he submits that 2 latecomers were accommodated at a cost of 43,200 rand. This amount is included in the 172,800 rand settled by the SAP. Our investigations revealed that only 6 members were deployed at Escort for the required duties. It would appear that this claim is false.
To give credence to that summary you have mentioned, I ask then that you deal with reading paragraphs 6 and 7, please.
Of the same report.
Of the same report.
Paragraph 6. In respect of the above deployment of 6 members to Escort, the total cost that the police would have incurred had they made bookings directly at Tozes B&B would have cost 63,000 rand. And then it says in brackets 29,400 plus 33,600. However, by making use of Gold Coast Trading CC, the SAP had to fork out 286,200 rand, and then in brackets breakdown of 113,400 plus 172,800 rand. An over expenditure of 223,200 rand. A statement has been obtained from the owner of Tozes Bed and Breakfast, who submitted that he had charged 350 rand per person per night. However, Gold Coast Trading CC had billed the SAP 1,350 rand per person per night for 8 members and not for 6, as submitted by Mrs. Tozer. In paragraph 7, a second claim was submitted and settled for 119,880 rand for 6 members that were accommodated at Parktown. According to the application for accommodation from Captain Narain Persat, accommodation was required for 6 members being trainers from Pretoria for the training of NIU members. NIU that means the National Intervention Unit members at Chatsworth College from 21st of February 2010 to 14 March 2010. Our investigations have revealed that the trainers were not from Pretoria but from KZN. One trainer stayed at his house and traveled daily to the course as he lived nearby. The course organizer, Colonel Ali from the Divisional Commission's training at Pretoria, was contacted and he submitted that all trainers and trainees in respect of the above-mentioned training were to be accommodated at the Chatsworth Training College. No financial authority was granted for any member or trainer to be housed in private accommodation, and an allowance of 50 rand per day was, however, authorised. Colonel Ali informed that no trainer from Pretoria travelled to Chatsworth College for the training of the NIU members. It would appear that the expenses probably meant for the payment of this claim was utilised from KZN provincial budget. From my investigations, it appears that the trainers were accommodated at Mrs. Get's B&B despite being instructed to stay at Chatsworth College. The actual cost for the accommodation paid by Gold Coast Trading, CC, was 30,492, but the SAP was billed 119,800 rand.
Yeah, I guess you're not going to ask him to read the whole report.
No,
He
Chair.
can just talk to important features or what he is able to make out of the report.
As it pleases, Chair, there's just 2 more paragraphs, if I may.
Which ones?
Paragraph 13, which is on page 8,
Yes. Okay. And which one?
and paragraph 16.
Okay. Those are
Paragraph
those are short. That's fine.
Yeah, and the first sentence on paragraph 17.
Yeah, that's fine. They are short.
Paragraph 13. Our investigations has also revealed that Gold Coast Trading CC has submitted a tender of 55 million rand for accommodation for SAP members for the duration of the 2010 World Cup. This tender needs urgent investigation. And which is the next paragraph?
Paragraph 16, 1-6 on the same page.
Paragraph 16. The invoices submitted by Gold Coast Trading CC do not have a VAT number and could possibly not be registered for VAT. This matter has to be reported to SARS for investigation as well.
And then the first sentence on paragraph 17.
Our investigation also revealed that Gold Coast Trading is not registered as an agent to provide accommodation for, the grammar is not so, for cooperates, thus qualifying for a commission.
And in conclusion, on page 9, the requirements of the investigators is noted in the last paragraph. Can I ask you to just read that last paragraph,
Which starts with,
please?
it is our submission.
Correct.
It is our submission that we would be able to prove fraud and or corruption in this matter. We require unhindered investigation in this matter and the call-up instructions for all detached duties, including the written request for the accommodation and other items mentioned above that was sourced by Gold Coast Trading CC.
Thank you. Is it thus correct to just summarize what you've read, that Mr. Toshan Pandey was the director of the claimant for all of these claims for Gold Coast Trading CC?
From reading the report, Chair, that is my interpretation.
Is it also correct that there were essentially the following people who were involved in these particular transactions, such being Mr. Toshan Pandey,
That's correct, Chair.
Colonel N. Madhu,
Naveed Madhu, that's correct, Chair.
and Captain A. Narain Persat,
That's correct, it was Ashwin Narain Persat.
if I've pronounced that correctly. Is it then also evident from this report that the issues relating to the claim concerned false claims submitted to the South African Police Services?
And that's indeed so, Chair.
Is it also correct that there was an inflation of costs for the claims that were submitted to the South African Police Services for payment?
I would go further than that, Chair. They were those prices were drastically inflated.
So, having read the report at that time when you got it, it was clear to you that the persons who had compiled it were making some progress in their investigation, and that they were getting to know that there indeed appeared to have been certain crimes that had been committed, and they say at the end of their report, they were confident that if they were given time to investigate more and their investigation was unhindered, they were confident that they could prove certain crimes, including fraud and maybe corruption.
Absolutely, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I can then ask you to quickly turn to Annexure JWB1, which is in file ZA. And that
What
is at page
of Exhibit ZA?
72.
72. Okay. Yes.
Is it correct that this was in fact a follow-up report that was done pursuant to the first report that was just referred to now? Or earlier, sorry.
That is correct, Chair.
Yes, but before we get there, having read the report parts of which you read a few minutes ago, did you do anything about the report or the request made by those who prepared the report to say we would like to have an unhindered investigation to take this forward? Is there anything you were supposed to do, or is there anything you did arising from being aware of the report?
Chair, the first report that I've just read out from,
Yeah.
that was submitted to me by Subramani about 2 weeks after I was told to stop the investigation.
Yes.
The fact that he had given me the report imputes that we were still on the same score, that that I was still supervising the investigation, albeit surreptitiously.
But was it 2 weeks after the first call from the provincial commissioner when you were on the road, or was it 2 weeks after the meeting, the meeting that you talked about?
It was 2 weeks after the meeting, Chair, where where Kemp and company were present, and she told Ntanjana to investigate. So this report came 2 weeks after that.
Okay. Excuse me. So you're being given this report can be said to have been part of pursuing the arrangement that was made with General Dramat to say the investigation should continue and what role you would play and so on. That was part of that.
Chair, I think Advocate September had alluded to it earlier on, that whilst I was preparing the statement of mine, that I was writing it from my recollection of what occurred.
Yes.
So sometimes things are not perfectly in sequence.
Yeah.
So if my memory serves me correctly, I only spoke to Dramat a bit later, if my memory serves me correctly.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I remember that paragraph was in a wrong place. All right. Yeah, it was not in the right place.
Correct.
But, okay, continue.
If I could perhaps assist.
Yeah.
Due to the change of date, which was rectified through a supplementary affidavit, the date being changed from May 2011 to 2010, it shifted in sequence.
Yeah.
But it was during late May 2010, as the General had given evidence, that he met with Dramat in Pretoria.
Yes. Okay.
Just as an update then, in terms of what this progress report stated, which also is necessary for the evidence to follow. Can I ask you to turn to page 75 of that particular bundle?
This is a very poor copy. If at all possible, maybe arrangements could be made to get a better copy. But if attempts have been made and this is the best that can be obtained, that's okay.
As it pleases, Chair, my copy is similar. I would certainly request the investigators to assist in obtaining a clearer report if possible.
Okay.
Chair, if I could perhaps just assist. These reports, and I'll perhaps speak to this later on in my evidence.
Yes.
A number of reports and statements had gone missing from the dockets.
Yes. Yes.
And a number of these reports I had to acquire from the investigators, some of them we've subsequently required, and a number of the documents that I attach were documents that I duplicated at the time, which I kept in a safe location.
Yes, okay.
So the only way that we'll be able to get...
So this might be the best that we can have.
Unless they go to the prosecutor that's currently seized with this matter and KZN and ask her.
Yes.
But I understand even from her that various documents and reports have gone missing from those dockets.
Okay. It may be that in the end one can read everything that is in it, which is the most important thing. Okay, that's fine.
If I can then ask you at paragraph 13 to just read the first sentence of that into the record, please.
Paragraph 13.
Ms. September, I don't know whether your voice has become softer than earlier.
I apologize.
I don't know if the people at the back here, but maybe you can try and raise it.
Apologies, Chair. General Booysen, if I can ask you to read the first sentence of paragraph 13 at page 75 into the record, please.
Paragraph 13. It has also been established that the target at provincial headquarters has the authority to sign off acquisitions to a maximum of 200,000 rand.
And who would this target be as referred to in the report?
That would be Colonel Lavin Madu.
If I could then ask you to read from the second sentence in paragraph 14, please, to the end of that paragraph.
Paragraph 14, the third sentence. The target at provincial headquarters manipulated the system by ensuring that the claims were split as not to exceed the 200,000 rand limit. In actual fact, Gold Coast Trading CC submitted a weekly claim for long detached duties. The schedule of payments is available to prove this theory.
And then paragraph 15 and 16.
Paragraph 15, Nedbank contacted me to inform me that the director of Gold Coast Trading CC has informed them that inquiries had been made into his account. He specifically mentioned the purchase of his new Ferrari. We had paid 510,000 rand deposit. The information was only given to two senior officers from provincial headquarters, and included in the report submitted to Major General Booysen. According to Major General Booysen, he had submitted the report to the PC, and he has not heard anything from her with regards to returning the original investigation file that was taken from the investigation team.
And that last sentence refers to the engagement that you had then with the provincial commissioner, to which you've already given evidence, at which you provided her and Ntanjana with a copy of the report. Is that correct?
Have we actually discussed that meeting?
The evidence that you gave is that you gave a copy of this report to two people, such being one, the provincial commissioner, and two being Ntanjana.
Chair, I'm not too sure, I'm not too sure whether we've covered that yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I follow. We are presently dealing with the report at page 7, starting at page 73 of Exhibit ZA. Now, part of that report, one of the paragraphs talks about a report that had been apparently given to the provincial commissioner. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so what is the question?
Let me rather retract the question,
Uh-huh.
if I may. If I could then just ask you to read paragraph 16 and paragraph 18 into the record, please.
Of the same
Of
report?
the same report.
So paragraph 16 and 17.
Yes, please.
Paragraph 16, at this stage, all the information needed to continue with the investigation is only available at supply chain management and ORS. ORS will be Operational Response Services at provincial headquarters. We cannot get any information from PQ, provincial headquarters, I assume that is, owing to interference and obstacles from senior management. In respect of the 2 Sony Bravia TVs supposedly purchased for provincial headquarters, there appears to be no record in the assets of the state. The TVs was paid from the...
Not that paragraph. The next one, which is paragraph 18, please.
In order for any success to be achieved, the investigation team must be allowed to investigate this matter unhindered and also to report directly to Lieutenant General Dramat or any senior officer appointed by him.
And it's correct then that this report has been compiled by Colonel V. Subramani, dated 4 June 2010.
That is so, Chair.
What is apparent from this report, according to the evidence that you've given relative to the report, is that unhindered investigation was necessary. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay.
The earlier report that we dealt with would have been given to you in May.
That is correct, Chair.
Yeah, and this was beginning of June, 4th June.
That's correct,
So
Chair.
were there monthly reports that were being given to you about the progress of the investigation?
Chair, there were no prescribed
Periods.
on which they...
So
it was done in a desultory fashion.
yeah, okay. Excuse me. So what are the important features of this second report, this report that you want to highlight in terms of the reports were to you and obviously seeing what progress was being made, you were to decide whether there was anything you needed to do or you simply needed to allow the investigation to continue.
Chair, I don't know whether I've covered this in my evidence or not yet with regards to the earlier report, which I received 2 weeks.
Yes. If you think it links to that, to this, you can talk about it.
I would just like to clarify that first before I go into this report.
Yes. So let's do that. How do we do that? Where do we go in order for you to testify about something that you want to testify, or will you be guided? Ms. September, do you know what he's talking
Chair.
about?
The page number is page 7 of his main affidavit, and it's
Yes.
paragraph 23.
Paragraph?
23.
Okay, all right. Yes.
Please proceed.
So Chair, the report that I'm referring to there is the report in Exhibit ZE.
Yes.
Page
So
5.
the report that you talk about in paragraph 23 of your affidavit is the report that we find in Exhibit ZE.
That's correct, Chair.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Now, Chair, that report, when Vasant Subramani gave me that report, I wanted to use that report to exert pressure on the PC in Kobeni.
Yes.
So I went up to her office with this report and I said to her, General, I've got a follow-up report from the investigating officers from Subramani, and it's clear from this report that we cannot just sweep this under the carpet. She then asked me for a copy of the report. Now, I specifically mention this, which it will become evident later while I'm mentioning this now, unless the evidence leader wants me to deal with that now. So she says to me, give me a copy of that report.
Yes.
Now, Subramani is the IO. He's compiled the report. He gave me a copy. So she says to me she wants a copy of the report. And Tanjana, by then she'd also summoned Tanjana because I said to her, because I suspected that Tanjana hadn't done anything about the so-called investigation. She summoned him to her office, asked him how far the investigation had gone, and he had some obscure explanation. He was waiting for a document, but it was clear that absolutely nothing had been done about the investigation. Then I told
And that was about 2 weeks after that meeting that you told us about.
That's right. So
okay. With the 2 weeks that he had been given, Tanjana.
And it was clear to me that he hadn't even commenced with anything whatsoever. So, and I made it clear to them with this report from Subramani, we cannot just leave this. Then she asked me for a copy of the report, and so did Tanjana. I made 2 copies. I gave one to Nkobeni and one to Tanjana.
Yes, okay. Thank you. You asked to deal with this in response to, because I had asked you the question, what you did after reading the second report from Subramani, the report that is in Exhibit ZA, starting, I think, at page 73. So my question was whether, arising from reading that report, there was anything you did.
No, not from my side.
Not from your side. But the report was directed to you, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. And it would have been given also to General Dramat, or you don't know?
Chair, I suspect, and I'm speculating.
Yeah.
I think Subramani at this juncture thought Booysen is also in with the PC.
Yes.
So I suspect that he gave this to Dramat.
Yes.
Because I think they suspected that I'm also involved in covering up the investigation.
Yes. Okay. But why wouldn't you have done anything arising out of it in the light of what appears to be a repeated plea, I think starting from the previous report, to say we need to be afforded an unhindered investigation? I would have thought that you would have wanted to go back to Subramani and say, I hear that just like in the first report you gave me, you are still concerned that you are not getting an unhindered investigation. This is what I have to say about it.
Chair, various events unfolded after this, which will become clear in my evidence and my interactions with Subramani.
Yes.
And I don't want to preempt what my evidence is going to be later on with regards to meetings I had with the PC and instructions that were given with regards to Subramani.
Yes.
But
you did take certain steps, is that right?
Subramani knew that I had their back. All those investigators knew that I had their back, and I made it abundantly clear to them that I will protect them in the investigation, and I think I've proven that throughout the investigation.
Yes. Well, Mr. Temba, you may have to make a judgment call. Certain things belong to certain events and the timing and so on. So I'll leave it to you whether the things that he is talking about should be dealt with now or later. But it's logical that if you get a report and people report to you, you should talk about what you may have done as a result of that report.
As it pleases.
But you have your own plan of how you want to deal with this. So I'm just alerting you that some of the most natural questions that arise might need to be addressed earlier than how the statement has been arranged.
As it pleases, Chair. In fact, he's about to address some of the queries that Chair has now raised.
Okay.
And to that end, it was during late June of 2010 that you were once again summoned to the Police Commissioner's office. Is that correct?
Can I just check whereabout we are in my statement?
You can turn to page 8, paragraph 24.
And that's correct, Chair.
Please explain to the Chair what had then transpired at this particular meeting and who was present.
Chair,
I'm
am I right?
sorry, paragraph 28. Did you say paragraph 28?
Paragraph 24.
24. Okay. Tell us what happened sometime in June.
Chair, I was called to the Provincial Commissioner's office, and so I took the lift and I went to her office, and she has an office with an adjoining boardroom, which are separated. There's a door between the two. And I entered the office, and she asked me to go with her into the boardroom. So she got up from behind her desk, and I got up and she opened the door. We went into a boardroom. And on entering the boardroom, I noticed a lady that was introduced to me as Tasha Giapersat.
Tasha?
Giapersat.
Okay.
She was an attorney. Then there was another gentleman whom I recognized as being Advocate Mkhize.
If I can, sorry to interrupt you, but just for the record, can I ask you to spell Tasha Giapersat, please?
It's Giyapersad.
Thank you. Please proceed.
The one gentleman there I recognized as being Advocate Mkhize, and I'd engaged with him before in police matters, in high court matters. So he obviously knew me and he stood up and greeted me. And then I was introduced to a gentleman by the name of Toshan Pandey.
So the provincial commissioner asked that the two of you proceed to the boardroom.
That's right.
And in the boardroom, you met the three persons that you have mentioned. So it was now in that boardroom yourself, the provincial commissioner, Advocate Mkhize, Ms. Giapersat, and there was somebody else as well, Pandey?
Toshan Pandey.
Toshan Pandey, yeah. Okay, yeah. Proceed, and what happened?
Chair, now during this meeting, and I felt very uncomfortable during this meeting because I'd now realized that Toshan Pandey was one of the main subjects of this investigation that we were busy with. And it was almost as if he chaired the meeting. He accused...
Up to the time you entered the boardroom, you still didn't know what the meeting was about, why you were called.
Not at all,
Chair. Okay, tell us what happened when the meeting started.
So, after the introductions, I was basically peppered with questions by Pandey and Giapersat. They accused the investigators of not having a mandate and investigating unlawfully, and so they were almost on a fishing expedition to try, and I had to negotiate my way through this meeting, trying to avoid answering certain questions because I wasn't going to give feedback.
But hang on. You have been called by the provincial commissioner, and she takes you into the boardroom where there are the people that you have mentioned. The meeting is supposed to be opened, and everybody gets told what the meeting is about. And one would expect that the provincial chairperson would be the person, the provincial commissioner would be the person who would do that. Did she do that?
Chair, this was no ordinary meeting.
This was not an ordinary meeting.
That's why I say it almost looked like Toshan Pandey was chairing the meeting.
But did he say what the meeting was about? Or did he just start asking you questions?
No, they started by, obviously everyone by now knew about the investigation. So he started by making allegations that, and his attorney started talking, and then he would interrupt her, and they were asking questions about the investigation, what mandate do we have, and they even said that.
But had you been told why each one was here and so on? You had not been told?
No,
and
Chair.
what their role was? So there was an attorney, there was an advocate, there was a suspect, there was a provincial commissioner, and yourself.
Chair, I felt like I'd been ambushed.
Yes.
That's how I felt.
So the attorney was Pandey's attorney,
That's correct, Chair.
and was Mkhize his advocate.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, all right, continue.
And they leveled these allegations, and I was, for lack of a better description, tried to do some shadow boxing around the allegations, and I just wanted to get out there. One of the allegations that they came up with was that Subramani was extorting money from Pandey. So, to my amazement, the provincial commissioner, who had already instructed me previously to stop this criminal investigation, now tells me to investigate, she tells me to investigate my investigator Subramani for the so-called extortion. So I indicated to the people there that I can only investigate if they give me an affidavit, which Gia Persat undertook to supply to me. She did subsequently, well, maybe if I could just finish with this meeting.
Yeah, finish with the meeting, yeah.
So during this meeting, as I said, I was peppered with questions, and I had to negotiate my way through trying to avoid talking about specifics. I dealt with the accusations and told them, well, I cannot see them accessing bank statements, etc., unlawfully, because they would not be able to utilize that as evidence at a later stage. And that's after the instruction was given that I should investigate Subramani. The meeting was then.
That was the end of the meeting.
That was the end of the meeting, Chair.
So let's try and get the gist of what was said. There were allegations that you people were investigating without a mandate. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
But what was the basis given for that allegation? Was there a basis given why that allegation was being made?
Chair, as I said, Pandey was carrying on there like he was the
chairperson of the
provincial
meeting.
commissioner.
Yeah.
He was going like this, and he said to Gia Persat, I want you to sue them, I'm going to sue you, and
yeah.
It was actually quite, I was actually quite annoyed with the way in which he carried on there, as if he was the provincial commissioner.
Yes. Did the provincial commissioner say anything during that meeting?
No, she didn't.
She just sat there and listened.
She sat there and listened to a suspect interrogating me about an investigation.
And Advocate Mkhize, did he say anything?
Chair, I had quite a cordial relationship with Mkhize because of our previous engagements.
Yes.
But he was merely a spectator, and I must say, he also passed on subsequently.
Oh, okay. So the one allegation that was made was that you people were investigating without a mandate, but I'm not sure if that makes sense to me. I mean, that allegation, the police are there to investigate. Who is supposed to give the police a mandate? They are there to investigate.
Chair, it didn't make sense to me either at the time, and still doesn't make sense to me. They said we had no mandate to investigate, but I don't know what he meant by that, whether we had to seek authority from the provincial commissioner or whether we had to get prior authority from whomever to investigate. But they said that my people did not have a mandate to do this investigation.
So the one allegation was that you people were investigating without a mandate. Another one was that Subramani was demanding money for them in order to stop the investigation.
And there was
extortion.
That's correct, Chair, but there was another accusation as well, and that was that my investigators were accessing bank statements unlawfully.
Yes.
And I made it clear to them, I doubt that they would do something like that because that they would then not be able to utilize those bank statements as evidence in a court of law.
Yes. And you say that you responded, you tried to respond in general without specifics.
That's correct, Chair.
Yeah, and then the meeting was over.
That's correct, Chair.
And the meeting ended on the basis that insofar as they were accusing Subramani of extortion, you said they must give you an affidavit and then you would be able to look into that.
That's correct, Chair.
Yeah, and after the meeting, did you have a chance to say to the provincial commissioner, what was this all about? What's going on?
Chair, it was starting to become clear to me that something was amiss. So as a matter of fact, I didn't even want to talk to her after that. I just excused myself and went to my office.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
On your suspicion, as your evidence entails, that something was amiss, can I ask you to turn to page 17 of your affidavit, main affidavit in bundle ZA, at paragraph 55.
Paragraph?
And 55. So it's page 17, 17. At paragraph 55, reference there is made to an independent forensic report. Can you please inform the Chair about this in the context of the evidence that you've given so far?
Chair, I refer to a forensic audit report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is an independent firm of accountants, and we had commissioned to do an independent forensic investigation into the financial aspects of the procurement and the payment of the money. But even before I acquired this report from PricewaterhouseCoopers, the investigators had reported to me, and that was during the same period that the investigation was being stopped. And I think it was late May, that there had been a birthday party for the husband of the provincial commissioner. It was a surprise birthday party. And the investigators informed me that this party had been paid for by Tosh and Panda. It was a lavish party in a hotel in Umhlanga Rocks. So those reports had alerted me that there was something amiss here.
Yes.
And according to the report, what was the amount of money that was spent on the birthday party for the husband of the provincial commissioner at the time?
Chair, the figure quoted was 30,000 rand, but there were other statements in the investigation which indicated that the party actually cost 20,000 rand, and when Panda had paid for it with his credit card, he asked for a receipt of 30,000 rand. I don't know what his intentions were to obtain a receipt for a higher amount, but it would appear that the actual amount paid was 20,000 rand, whereas the receipt obtained by him was for 30,000 rand.
Thank you.
So so what you're saying is there was an independent forensic audit report from PricewaterhouseCoopers which reflected that Mr. Pandey had paid a certain amount of money for the birthday party of the provincial commissioner's husband, and that the amount mentioned was about 30,000 rand.
That is correct, Chair, but
Yes.
before I had this report, the investigators had already indicated to me
Yes,
that
yes.
there was this party for which Pandey had paid.
Yes. So this report was confirming something
That's
you
right,
had
Chair.
had. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
And just to clarify, that birthday party happened at approximately when?
I think it was towards the end of May, Chair. I think around about the 29th of May.
Or it's something that happened during the same year when you started the investigation.
That's right, Chair.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I can just quickly take you back to the meeting that you had in late, if we could go back now to paragraph 24 on page 8 of your affidavit.
I'm sorry, just to connect this. If the birthday party happened sometime late in May 2010, it means that when you were called for the first time by the provincial commissioner when you were on the road in your car, and when the second call also came, and when that meeting happened, in all probability, arrangements for that party were happening because it's the same month.
Chair, what I can say about that, there's another witness who had deposed to an affidavit that is one of the secretaries of the provincial commissioner.
Yes.
And she made a statement, which I have a copy of, in which she says, I think it was on the 26th of May, the provincial commissioner, during the morning meeting, I wasn't present at that meeting, then indicated that there was going to be this party, surprise party for her husband, and that she would invite certain individuals, and she apologized to those present that she could not invite all of them for obvious reasons. And she still indicated to one of the brigadiers, according to the statement, Brigadier Winkelman, that it's not because I don't like you, if I don't invite you, it's because of other constraints. But the significant part of what occurred there was what happened after the meeting, because the secretary then went to the provincial commissioner and asked her, those that's going to be invited, are the spouses also invited? And it's at that point where the provincial commissioner looked at the minutes and saw that she had recorded the issue about the party, and then she remonstrated with her for having recorded that as part of the minutes. And that was on the 26th. So it would appear that there had been preparations for the party prior to that.
Okay, thank you.
If I could then just quickly take you back to page 8 of your affidavit, which then details at which you then address the evidence that you had already given in relation to the meeting that you had at late June 2010. Can I just ask, what exactly was the police commissioner's attitude at that meeting towards continuance of the investigation?
Which meeting are we referring to, Chair?
The one at paragraph 24, at which you've already given evidence where Mr. Pandey, Mrs. Tasha Giya-Persat, and Advocate Mkhize was present.
Isn't that the one where he said the provincial commissioner was quiet throughout? Is that not the one?
Yes,
No, that's-
yes, Chair. That is indeed.
Yes.
But-
What's the question then?
My question is, did the police commissioner indicate her attitude at all to continuance of the investigation?
Not during the meeting, Chair, but before we went, and I omitted to mention that before we went in she confirmed with me that the investigation had stopped. Before I went
She
to...
confirmed that the investigation should be stopped,
No, that it had stopped.
that it had stopped.
So I confirmed with her that it had stopped, whereas
Yes.
it did not. But that's just before we entered the boardroom.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just before you get into the boardroom, she says to you the investigation has stopped.
That's correct, Chair.
And your understanding would have been that the investigation that she was talking about, that she was saying had stopped, would be the investigation by Ntanjana, because she had said Ntanjana was the one who was going to investigate.
No, Chair, I think she was referring to the investigation that we were busy with, that had stopped.
Oh, okay.
Because we were now going to enter into a meeting with Pandey and the
Yes.
company.
Yeah.
And I think she just wanted to get clarity from me before we entered there that the investigation had stopped.
Oh, but was she asking you whether it had stopped, or was she telling you that the investigation had stopped?
No, then by then she'd already told me on more than one occasion to stop it.
Yes,
So before
yes.
we entered, she asked me, is the investigation and has it stopped? So I said to her, yes.
Oh, okay, now I understand. Okay, but then, okay, when you get into the meeting, she doesn't tell these people that the investigation has stopped. Instead, the people are bombarding you with questions. But you also didn't say, but the investigation has stopped. You didn't say that either.
No, I did not say that, Chair.
Yes, but she also didn't.
No, she didn't.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for clarifying that point. And it was then at that meeting that you mentioned that Subramani was, or rather allegations were made against him in relation to extortion from Mr. Toshon Pandey. That's correct.
That's correct, Chair.
And what was the police commissioner's direction to you in relation to that allegation against Mr. Subramani?
Chair, then she said to me that I should investigate Colonel Vasan Subramani.
And did you?
I did, Chair. I requested them for an affidavit, and I think it was a day or two later, Tasha Giapersat, the attorney, arrived at my office with a statement. It was like a half page, it wasn't even a full pager, but it was one of these nonsensical statements that taken from Pandey, obviously, that he had received this anonymous call and someone extorting R1 million from him, but they couldn't identify the person. So I took that statement, and there was no one else that I could approach to confirm. So I confronted, well, if I say confronted, I say that in inverted commas, Vasan Subramani. And I told him about the investigation, and I obtained a warning statement from him. And I presented the docket to the senior public prosecutor, who then went through the docket, and he declined to prosecute in the matter.
And this is the same Colonel Subramani who had authored the reports that you have submitted to this commission.
That was the same Subramani, Chair.
Thank you. About 1 week later, you were summoned to another meeting. To another meeting.
Well, let him do the testifying. Let him testify about these events. Don't. Yes.
So, Chair, a week later, I was called to another meeting. This time around, same scenario. I go to the office.
Now, you are called to the provincial commissioner's office again.
That's
yes.
right, Chair.
And this time, who called you? Did somebody phone you this time?
So what would happen, Chair, the provincial commissioner's secretary would phone my secretary, would then tell me the PC wants to see you.
Oh, okay, all
Then
right. You were in the same building. You
Same
were on the
building.
14th floor, and she was on the
She's on
18th floor. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I get into the lift,
Yes.
go up to her office, exactly the same thing happened. Go into her office, she's alone, door closed to the boardroom, She confirms me that the investigation had stopped. I confirm the investigation had stopped. She's come with me, we go into the boardroom, same scenario, but this time,
Oh, hang on. You just told us about a meeting that happened where you got called to her office, and you went into her office, she was alone, and she said the two of you had to go to the boardroom, which is adjacent to her office, or from her office you go into the boardroom. You went into the boardroom with her and found certain people there. Now, are you saying that now there was another meeting where more or less the same thing was happening? You go into her office, then she says you must go into the boardroom. She asks you about the investigation, whether it has stopped, you confirm it has stopped, and then you go into the boardroom. Is that what you are saying?
that's what I'm saying, Chair.
And in between, from the previous meeting, there had been no interactions between the two of you?
I tried to avoid it, Chair.
Yes, but did she try to make contact during?
Not
between?
what that I could recall, Chair.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why, when you had told her before that the investigation had stopped, she would call you up and she asked you again, has the investigation stopped? And you say yes, and then it's like a repeat of the previous meeting.
I suspect what could have happened is Pandey and Madhu, the subjects of the investigation, obviously had a network, and they knew that the investigation hadn't stopped.
Yes, yes.
Because witnesses are now being approached from a respective bed and
Yes.
breakfast. So although I'm telling her the investigation had stopped,
Yeah, the truth was it had not stopped.
and it could not be concealed because we had to approach Chair, in the end there were over 200 affidavits obtained in that investigation. So somehow it must have gotten to Pandey and Madhu that, look, this, in spite of the assurances given by the PC, this thing is still proceeding.
Yeah.
And I think it was at their behest
Yeah,
that she,
called to the meeting.
that's right, Chair. She
Okay.
entertained them.
Okay, so all right. So I stopped you as you were saying you went to her office and then the two of you went into the boardroom, but before going into the boardroom, she asked you whether the investigation had stopped, and you say yes, and then you entered the boardroom.
So I went into a second ambush, Chair. Now this time around, because of my engagements with a number of high court cases, I knew most of the counsel in especially Durban. So I walked in and there I again encountered Advocate Chaudhry, SC, whom I knew, and Advocate Stix Mgladla, whom I also knew. So we exchanged greetings, and then with them was again Tasha Giapersat, the attorney, and Tasham Pandey. More or less the same scenario unfolded that had occurred previously. But this time around, by then the investigators had reported to me that Giapersat had been interfering with the investigation. What had happened is statements that had already been obtained, and I can recall one specific one from Pongola. It was at, I think, Crocodile Lodge, Crocodile Creek or something called like that.
You mention it at paragraph 29. If I could direct you there.
That's correct, Crocodile Creek Guesthouse. Now, the owner of that guesthouse was Edward Ngwenya. The investigators reported to me there were at least two witnesses, and I recall the specific one, which had been approached by Pandey. And in this particular instance, when we did further investigation, well, the investigators did further investigation, but I then phoned a captain in. So what had happened is Edward Ngwenya had already made an affidavit to the investigators. And there was another guy by the name of Singh, I cannot recall. So they report to me that these same witnesses who had already deposed to affidavits have now been approached by Giapersat. And then I know specifically with regards to Ngwenya that I sent a captain there to confirm it, and he phoned me back and he said to me, no, it's spoken to Ngwenya, and Ngwenya said no, because of the dealings that he'd had with Gold Coast Trading, invoices were coming to and fro and he had to sign documents. They'd send him a document which he had to sign, which he did. But the document that he had signed, according to the investigators, was an affidavit which conflicted what he had said in his affidavit to the investigators. So I took issue with that, and I said at the meeting, so I thought, let me have a go at them. And I said to Giapa, I said, listen, you're not at liberty to go and interview witnesses that my investigators had already interviewed. And that developed into a bit of a heated argument between myself and Giapa. And in the end, Advocate Chowdhury said to Giapa, I think the general's right, just leave this.
Yes.
And we left it at that.
So, so at this meeting, the provincial commissioner once again did not say anything.
No, she did not.
And
one correction. At that stage, I cannot recall exactly at what stage. I indicate because we were running the thing on an inquiry. And I think the investigators van Lochenburg, I think it was van Lochenburg, I think they were getting fed up, and they went and registered, converted the thing to the inquiry to a docket, to an actual criminal docket.
Or in the meantime?
In the meantime.
Without your knowledge?
Without my knowledge.
Yes, but you did...
But they told me that.
Oh, they told you, yeah.
And I think it was at that meeting where I said to the PC that the docket's been opened now. It's been converted to a docket.
Yes.
And then she said, well, then she can't interfere. But I think she was merely stating the obvious.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so was she not surprised that just before you entered the boardroom, you had confirmed that the investigation had stopped, but now in the meeting you are saying actually the investigation had been upgraded to the opening of a docket, so it was no longer an inquiry? I would have expected that if she had believed you when you said the investigation had stopped,
yeah.
If now at the meeting you say actually a docket has been opened, she should have been surprised.
I suspect she was surprised, Chair, because she said, well, if there's a docket open, then I cannot interfere. But my take on that was she was merely stating the obvious. She knew she could not have interfered from the word go.
Yes. So what impression did you get of what the purpose of this meeting was from what was discussed?
Chair, I'm going to speculate as a detective. It was evident to me that there were communication between the PC, Pandey, and Madhu. Now, Madhu being the middleman within the same building that we work, he's involved with the dealings with Tosh and Pandey. I think he's the in-between person between Pandey and the PC. So they were alive to the fact that the investigation was ongoing. I think it was either they wanted to put pressure on us to stop with the investigation, and as I would explain later on in my affidavit, they went to other measures as well. Some less drastic, other more drastic, to try and either thwart or compromise the investigation.
So, but at this meeting, what allegations or what was said really by the Pandey side, if I can call it that, by the attorney or the two advocates were there, or him?
It was the same as at the first meeting. We are investigating unlawfully, we're making use of unlawful methods. It was a repetition of the previous allegations.
Yes. And how did this meeting end? What was the basis on which it ended?
Well, obviously, Chair, after my heated discussion with Gia Persat, the atmosphere was a bit thick, and the meeting was called off by the PC, and I left.
Yes. And did you do, as you had done in the previous meeting, in the previous similar meeting, that after the meeting you didn't want to speak to the provincial commissioner, you left? Or did you have some discussion with her about this meeting?
No, Chair, I didn't. But what was obvious to me after those engagements with her, the PC had a very aggressive behavior in management meetings. And General Danjana, General Masamolo, General Jula, who's now the PC in Cape Town, will bear me out here. The way she sometimes spoke to them, I would cringe. And me being the only white general there, from that time onward, I basically got away with murder. I would sometimes, because her meetings could carry on for hours and hours, and I would just stay away from the meetings. They dared not stay away from a meeting or come late into the meeting, and she would have a go at them. And she basically left me. And what I sensed from that is, I think she was scared of what we were busy with.
Okay. That's why she treated you differently.
I was treated much better than any of the other generals.
Yes, yes. She wouldn't shout at you like...
No, Chair.
Yeah.
And if I stay away from a meeting, she wouldn't even ask me where you were, like she would do with the rest of the generals.
Yes. That's quite strange. Yes.
Just one last question to close up this point. You mentioned that at this particular meeting, you were accused of unlawful methods of investigating. Paragraph 28 of your affidavit alludes to a method of investigating. Can you please explain what you meant by unlawful methods that you were accused of?
They were accusing the investigators, Chair, of accessing their bank documents and other documents that could possibly incriminate them unlawfully. Now, Chair, what happens is in practice, it does happen from time to time, where investigators would, through their contacts in the banks, acquire information and then ex post facto obtain 205s. When they accused my investigators initially of doing that, I engaged with them. I called them to my office and I said to some chaps, I don't want any of this. And they assured me 100% that every single cell phone record, bank statement that they had acquired were lawfully done by means of Section 205 subpoenas from the Criminal Procedure Act. They were saying that my detectives did not have 205s, and hence they were, because the reports, and it will become clear later why they would say that, because the information in the reports contained information that could only have been acquired from the banks by means of either from a 205 or unlawfully. But they were saying it, we acquired, well, my investigators acquired it unlawfully.
I see that in your statement in Prof 27, one of the advocates that you say were present at the meeting that you talked about just now is written as Advocate Sticks Madlala. I think it is Mdladla. Mdladla, not Madlala.
Mdladla.
Yeah, that would be...
Thank you, Chair.
MDLADLA. I can't remember if he writes it without an H, but if he writes it with an H, then it would be LHA, but I don't know what your recollection of seeing how it's written, but it's not Madlala. It must be Mdladla.
Thank you for the correction, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I note the time, and I've been informed that...
Oh, yes. We need to take the lunch adjournment. It's already 1:05, and we'll resume at 5. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.
Small thing that we need to address. I made a slight error. That second report, the one that was the wrong one, that you pointed out when we were consulting, when you